hello. Come on in, have a seat. Pour yourself a cup of coffee. Relax and let's try to do a little thinking together. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of voices calling, influences from a variety of places, some of them good, some of them not so good. It seems to be that we Homo sapiens like to reduce things to cliches and simple statements, and there's usually truth in them. And there's usually some error, some things that just won't apply in the real world. And we live in the real world around real people and real conditions, and there's such a variety of experiences and views that each of us has. And it's no wonder that we have problems getting along when we put many animals in a small area, particularly in the wintertime. We would have what amounted to a small barn lot inside the barn, but it was pretty crowded in the barn, in the corral. And a dominant cow would rule the other cows, and the bull would rule everybody. And you'd have a lot of friction among the animals that you didn't have out in the field when they were running free in the pasture. People are like that. I can't see my nearest neighbor. That's not by chance. But from my perspective, I get along fine with my neighbors. Now, if I need something, I've got good neighbors and I can call on them, and have. And they've done a variety of things to help me through the years. And occasionally, I was able to do something for them. But as you crowd people together in the cities, well, just look around you in the world, in this country, or if you live in a city, you know this. If you live in an area like I do, you may not have been paying attention, but when you crowd people or animals together, you begin to get friction, and this is because we are each looking out for our own affairs. That's normal. And you're not going to change human nature. You can pass all kinds of laws, but you can't change human nature. So one of the phrases we hear that I want to talk to you about is the idea of go along to get along. Now that works so far. And then it won't work any further. Others want you to just put up with anything and everything, whereas you're trying to get along. Now, I don't care what your view is or your life experience. That's the way that it is. You try to get along with people, but you have limits. And if somebody crosses that, then you have friction, and sometimes you have things a lot worse than friction. This human condition has been it's been in progress or digression for thousands of years, and people that were respected for their military prowess or fighting away somebody that would come in and steal and rape and destroy, and at the beginning people would make them a king, make them a ruler, and then the authority went to their head, and they got old, and feeble-minded, and often in history you see family members killing the king, or the king being overthrown, and then you get another fellow, often the one that led the forces against this evil king, and the endless cycle, just repeat, repeat, repeat. Think about it. Has anything changed? Well, yes, it has. It's changed. One of the big things, it was a progression, but something that was never tried before was the beginnings of this country, where the people overthrew a despot, which was the King of England, and they did not make a king. Now, they came pretty close. If George Washington hadn't been the quality that he was, he would have been king. People would have gladly made him king. What he wanted was to get the country established, and he wanted to go back to his farm and live and enjoy his family. And he finally was able to do that. So the endless cycle was broken in the United States. Now, it's been well over 200 years, and things are not like what's called the fathers of our country. It's not like they wanted or like they envisioned. But we are still in a condition of a lot more freedom than just about any other country. Now, if you don't feel that way, get your things together, sell what you don't want to take with you, buy plane tickets, and go to the country of your choice. There are no laws to prevent you doing that. Some countries, you're not allowed to do that today. But we have the liberty pretty much to go and come as we please. Well, the grand principle of this United States is liberty. But I can't just do as I please. In my terms, a little phrase, that cliche, whatever, is that your rights end at the end of my nose. That pretty well sums up the matter. If we want to get along, if we want to go along to get along, then you and I must be careful not to beat on each other's nose. To have personal liberty, we need to understand that we must allow personal liberty. So we need to be careful of what we refuse our neighbor having. That takes some consideration. If we're flippant with that idea, then we're going to find a place where we don't get along with our neighbor. And you can't legislate morality, and you can't legislate people getting along. There has to be certain guiding principles, and we have laws to take people who just will not go along to get along with anything, and we put them in prisons, or we remove them from society. I've got a little bit to read in a book here that might help get my point across. Now, I don't know that this is in print. I doubt if it is. But the title is The Vineyard of Liberty, and James McGregor Burns published it, I think back in the 80s. Let me look here. (1982). It's not a bestseller or a classic, although I believe it's worthy of being a classic. And at the very beginning of the book, he attempts to lay out the condition of these United States in the late 1700s. And there's a couple of phrases in here, if I can find them, that I want to read to you. Americans were united by common fears of Indians and foreigners, shared rural needs and environments, memories of a revolution, a powerful belief in independence and liberty, but little else. Of the 4 million, about 750,000 were black. Now that's a pretty large percentage. And of these, 700,000 were slaves, and the rest free men. And he says that they weren't overwhelmingly Protestant, that is, protesting the Catholic Church is generally the way it's put. There were Congregationalists, Anglicans, Presbyterians, German churches, Dutch Reformed, Baptists, Roman Catholics, Methodists, and a few Jews. This book says 2,000. That's not very many in a country of 4 million. So from he just relates common history that there was a lot of disagreement, and there were 13 colonies, and even the individual colony wasn't united as like a family, like a small family. And so he speaks about the diversity of beliefs, but they shared generally a sense of humor, a degree of tolerance, and a love of song. They shared the love of tolerance because many of these people, their fathers or their grandfathers, had been everything from burned at the stake to whatever you can imagine. And he relates some things here. I wish I could understand the languages, but he's showing the diversity of people in the United States. How on the banks of the Missouri River, the western end of the nation at the time, an Omaha chief leading a peace delegation to the neighboring Sioux celebrated his mission in verse, and I don't know where he got this, he doesn't say, and I can't begin to read the language. And then a French-born voyager sung a song of the old Norman homestead. In the Virginia mansion, a tobacco planter stood by the window and sang an old Scotch ballad. My father's family were Scotch, and a lot of the United States is heavily, well, we say Anglo-Saxon, but a lot of them are Scotch and Irish. And it was in later times that people came from nations such as Italy and Greece. In Salem, the congregation hymned from the Old Bay Psalm book. And then the last he has of this great diversity that's our nation. From the slave quarters of a South Carolina plantation came the deep throaty lament. The night is dark, the day is long, and we are far from home. Weep, my brothers, weep. It's amazing to me that this country survives. But if we think there's great division today, one reason I read those things was there was great division in the early parts of the country. The thing that unites us, and if we're going to be reunited, is a love of liberty. The name of this again is the Vineyard of Liberty. And that's going to involve a measure of going along to get along. We're going to have to appreciate the other person's point of view, their wants and desires and needs. And if we are not aware of their rights and our rights, put as though your rights end at the end of my nose, then all we're going to have is trouble. That works on an individual basis, it works on a country basis. And so maybe that's some things that you'll help out today, and I'll close with that. I've got a lot to review here. Looking forward to finishing this book, and I've got a few others I'd like to read. So you have a blessed day, and I hope you can come back for another visit soon.